Can you confirm whenever it's ready?
Hello, folks. She's
just waiting on ICT to get us up and running here, Paul. How's
it out your way?
Not great.
Not great, isn't it?
Yeah, so we're live here, guys. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the regulatory section of the remote meeting of the Planning Regulatory Services Committee. Can I ask everyone to please mute their microphones at all times unless invited to speak by myself. Audio recording is being used to assist in preparing the formal minutes. Therefore, anyone participating in the meeting consents to it being recorded and being live streamed on YouTube. Okay, we have a couple of apologies. Apology from Councillor O'Dowd. Bear with me. Councillor Mulholland and Councillor Moutry. Any other apologies, members? No. Okay, so moving on to agenda item 2, declarations of interest. We can take them now or take them as we come across them during the meeting. Okay, members? And agenda item 3, report from the Strategic Director on Community and Growth. It's item of information 3.1. 6th monthly business plan progress reports, and I'm going to bring in Tom Lavery to report.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. Yes, in line with our strategic performance management framework, all heads of department and strategic directors review progress to date on the 2022-23 departmental business plans. And within the reports, the rating is applied in terms of progress against individual performance measures using the green, amber, or red categories. The overall performance and implementation over the last 6 months on business plans for both planning and building control departments are as noted within the report. And when performance measures are not progressed or are not fully achieved, a rationale is provided with comments in the comments section. So if members have any queries in relation to the details within the reports, Damien and I would be happy to take them on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Tom. Members, have any questions or queries? No. No hands. Okay. Thank you very much, Tom. Councillor Armstrong, go ahead.
Sorry about that. I just couldn't find the button to raise my hand. Is getting used to this. It's in relation to the reports, especially is it Appendix 1 and 2, PO7 for planning and BC09, about monitoring and managing staff absenteeism. To me, it's very concerning that in both the long-term sickness and being off is in red for both departments. As far as I'm aware, it's becoming a sort of theme within council, and I've only been in here 5 months. That long T sickness and absenteeism is happening and occurring. I just want to know what is going on with this, and what is what is happening to address these issues and to ensure that job loads aren't being put onto a select few people, and that work is being distributed out fairly. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Armstrong. Do you want to lower your hand down there? Tom or Damien, do you want to respond to that, please?
I can respond to that, Chair. Thank you. Yes, unusually, yes, we do have, it's our building control department. It's not normal. We don't have a huge number of staff. So if we get I think I have 3, and obviously we're not in confidential and I can't give details but they are genuine cases. I can assure you of that. There are 3 staff who are off on long-term illnesses at this point in time, unfortunately. And in addition to that, I have 2 staff who have just left the department. Now I am getting those backfilled, but there is a process, there's a turnaround time, but it does put pressure on the rest of the department while we have those staff off and we have, say, the gaps in the system. And I'm assuming it's probably something similar for Damien as well. All we can do is just keep it under monitoring. As I say, unfortunately, with not being confidential, I can't go into the detail, but all I can assure you is they are genuine cases of illnesses, which is unusual for the department. And I don't know if Damien has something to add to that maybe as well.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Members, is it difficult for yourselves for Damien? Yeah. Sorry, Damien, you're
unable to sort of go into any detail, but look, since at the minute, and as Tom said in his case. Sorry, you hearing me okay, Chair?
Yeah, you just sort of came on there at 1,000 mile an hour. Go ahead again.
Yeah, I don't know what you picked up there, but just from the beginning, I'll maybe just pick it up again from the start. Very similar situation to the one that Tom finds himself in, and because we're not confidential, Chair, I can't go into detail. But look, we also have 3 long-term sickness absences, genuine cases. We also have a number of vacant posts, and we're working diligently with colleagues in human resources to try and ensure that the sickness absence is closely monitored and managed, and also that vacant posts are backfilled as soon as possible. But yes, look, I appreciate the point that has been made by Councillor Armstrong, but the work is, as I said, we're working very closely with colleagues in human resources to make sure that vacancies and sickness absence is managed and addressed as an urgent matter. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Damien. Councillor Armstrong, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I appreciate the responses there on that. Would Damien and Tom both be happy enough, since we're not in confidential, for me to send them through a couple of questions, a bit more detail, as we're not in confidential? I appreciate that some things can't be discussed in public forum, but would they be happy enough with that if an email went through to them?
Absolutely, Chair. Happy to pick that up. I'm sure Tom is as well.
Yeah, absolutely happy with that.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Duffy, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just on the back of that, it's just a bit of grim reading on it, and it's saying not meeting targets may lead to injury, death, and loss of council reputation. Would that have any kickback? Bar, the reputation. Would it have any, like lawsuits or anything like that there, if these targets aren't met?
If I can pick that one up, Chair. Unfortunately, yes, is the answer. If we don't have staff to get out there and catch things on and keep people safe, there is that potential. Now, I'm not aware of anything at the moment, but I do know that staff and resources are stretched to their capacity, basically, at the moment. And as I say, I'm hoping to backfill. As I say, we have a couple of vacancies as well, which have been offered out, but that does take time to get back into recruitment. But with the loss of the 3 staff through long-term sickness, it does put quite a bit of pressure on the department, as it will do with Damien's department as well. There are no easy answers to it, as I say. We just hope the staff recover soon and fully and get back into the office. But inevitably, like any enforcement department, if the resources not there to catch things, I think I've mentioned in the past that 90% of what comes through our doors doesn't comply with the building regulations, and if we don't catch it on early enough, it becomes a problem that we have to deal with. Rather than dealing with it on somebody's drawing, that it can be corrected quite quickly and quite painlessly. If we're standing looking at it because we haven't had the resources to catch it on soon enough, it becomes much more expensive and can cause all sorts of problems trying to get it resolved when you're standing looking at it on site.
Yeah, Chair, just to follow on from Tom, look, obviously, Chair, resources and lack of resources, makes operational delivery extremely challenging. And as Tom has said, look, if it's about meeting targets, and we will come on to this on a report shortly in terms of planning is performing against statutory targets, but resources obviously do have an impact on our ability to meet those targets. But look, as I said already, it is a case of Tom and I managing our departments, working closely with human resources, trying to ensure that we manage our sickness absence. With regard to vacant posts, it is about the market and what's available out there, and whether or not you can, get a candidate who is suitable to take up post. That's not always easy. It's not as straightforward as it might sound. So there are challenges around, filling vacancies. It's not a very straightforward case at all. But look, we're working hard and diligently to try and ensure vacant posts are filled as soon as possible, Chair.
Thank you very much, Damien. Tom, you looking to come back?
Yes, Chair. Just got to assure members that, like Damien's department, we do prioritise, we do risk assess. So it just means that we have to prioritise to say what the most risky items of work are. And it means that that's because of lack of resources, we may have to do postpone other pieces of work that we'd like to do that maybe just haven't got as big a risk with them. But just assure members that we do address any particular risks that are out there, and we do prioritise.
Thank you very much, Tom. Content, Councillor Duffy?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Damien. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Damien. Thank you, Tom, as well. Move on to agenda item 4, report from the Head of Planning. It is 3 items for information, 4.1 telecommunications mass. I'm going to bring in Damien to present the report.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Members, you'll recall you received a report in June on the health and safety considerations relating to telecommunications mass, and you requested officers write to the Department for Infrastructure requesting a review of planning policy in the matter. DFI responded stating that they don't have any plans of bringing forward new or revised planning policy at the present time, and they added that the Department of Health are of the view that the guidelines produced by the International Commission on Non-Ionising Radiation Protection remain an appropriate standard. DFI also advised that the Department of Health are better placed to advise on the latest health considerations, and officers have therefore engaged with the Department of Health, and the salient points from their response, which members is attached to Appendix 3, are set out in the report. In summary, they say that in accordance with the latest guidance from the UK Health Security Agency, if exposure levels are below the levels recommended by the International Commission, health effects are unlikely to occur. So having regard to the advice of the Department of Health and in accordance with current planning policy, if an applicant submits a statement declaring their proposal will comply with the guidance of the International Commission on Non-Ionising Radiation Protection, this aspect of the development should not be considered any further by the Council. Sorry that sounds very technical, members, and hopefully you've picked up on what the Department of Health's response is stating, but I'm happy to pick up any queries or questions, Chair. Thank you.
Many thanks, Damien, and you can see you were doing a lot of writing to a lot of different departments. Members, do you have any queries or questions for Damien on this? No, okay. Thank you, Damien, on that. Move on to 4.2, an update in the planning applications caseload. I'm going to again bring in Damien to present the report.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Members, you'll see from the report that the number of decisions that issued during the month of October was 117. Number of applications received over the same period, 115, which leaves the current live caseload at 1,018, which is down about 50 members from the beginning of the business year. So we're going very much the right direction, but bearing in mind that the context that we're working in around what we just discussed around vacant posts and sickness absence, it is a challenge, but nevertheless, progress has been made, and we're very much going the right way in terms of reducing the volume of live cases within the system. Just to quickly pick up on call-in requests, Chair, there were 5 call-in requests during October, which brings the total for year to date to 19. Happy to pick up any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Damien. And is that year to date, is that sort of tax year, or is that from January?
No, that's from 1st of April. That's the business year, Chair.
No problem. Well, thank you. Members, any questions? No hands up. Okay, move on to 4.3. Northern Ireland planning statistics. First quarter of 2023-24. Again, I'm going to bring in Damien to present the report.
Thanks, Chair. Members, the report before you relates to the statistical bulletin produced by the Department of Infrastructure for Q1 of the business year. Provides an overview of planning activity across all planning authorities and gives information on processing times and performance. Now, I don't propose members to go through the report verbatim, but I do think it'd be useful to pick out just a few of the headline points for you. So in relation to the 30-week statutory target for major applications, you'll note, members, that the Council met the target with a processing time of 29 weeks. And I'm pleased to report that out of the 11 councils, we were the second fastest against that target. So very good news in that respect. Regarding the 15-week target for processing local applications, the Council unfortunately missed that target with a processing time of 26 weeks. The processing time for local applications across the 11 councils ranged, members, from 11 weeks to 38 weeks. And we're positioned approximately midway within that range. The fact that we did miss the target is attributable to some of the things I've mentioned already, members, the high volume of cases, sickness and vacant posts and so on. So look, that does feed in to the performance against the local target. But as I mentioned earlier, we are working diligently to try and address those issues. Turning, if I can, to the statutory target for enforcement, members are asked to note that the bulletin does not report on the enforcement target at this stage, as data is currently not available. However, that information will be provided at a later date. Just what also might be of interest to you, members, is that out of the 11 councils we received during Q1, the 5th highest number of applications and issued the 3rd highest number of decisions. So just a few headlines, Chair. I'm happy to pick up any questions or queries. Thank you.
Thank you, Damon, and thank you to the team for keeping the ball going. Members, any questions or queries? No. Okay, thank you very much, Damon. Move on to agenda item 5, report from Head of Building. 5.1 street naming report for Meeting House Avenue, which is in Banbridge, and I'm going to bring in Tom Lavery to report.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is a request for the naming of a housing development consisting of 35 dwellings. And as we said, the site is located on Meeting House Road. It's actually between Meeting House Road and Commercial Road in Banbridge. It's the former Germinal agricultural supply site. The members will see that maps are as an Appendix 1, and the vehicular access for the entire development is provided from Meeting House Road. Now, the applicant's preferred name for the development is Meeting House Avenue, and officers have spoken directly with the applicants, who confirm that the reasoning for the suggested name is that all the vehicular access is going to be off Meeting House Road. Excuse me. The proposed site layout is slightly unusual and as indicated in the maps, and it indicates dwellings actually fronting onto Meeting House Road, but it also dwellings fronting onto Commercial Road. Now, however, Commercial Road do not have enough postal numbers available to use the Commercial Road as an addressing option. So officers have confirmed with the applicant that additional signage will be required to facilitate clarity in postal numbering of the development under the proposed street name and this actual site layout. But essentially what it will mean is additional signage will be required to the 2 blocks of units that front onto Commercial Road to clarify that they're actually part of the Meeting House Avenue development. So officers have assessed and deemed the process compliant with the Council's policy, and the recommendation therefore is for members' approval of Meeting House Avenue. I'm happy to take any questions members may have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Tom. Members, any questions or queries on this? No hands up. Okay, members, it is an item for decisions. We'll get a proposer and seconder. Yeah, proposed by Councillor Hockey. Yeah, and second by Alderman Kennedy, the Vice Chair. We all agreed? there's no dissenting voices, so I'll assume that's an agreement. Okay, thank you very much, members. Move on to agenda item 7, correspondence. There is none. Agenda item 8, any other relevant business? I don't have any. So, members, I will see you all back here at 4 p.m. In the meantime, I hope you're getting the welly boots on, going to do a wee bit of digging. Yeah. See you all soon. Just let us know whenever we're good to go. Yeah, many thanks. Yeah, agenda item 6, applications for planning permission to be considered by the committee as per schedule of the planning applications. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the planning section of the remote meeting of the Planning Regulatory Services Committee. Can I ask everyone to please mute the microphones at all times, unless invited to speak by myself. Audio recording is being used to assist in preparing formal minutes. Therefore, anyone participating in the meeting consents to being recorded and being live streamed on YouTube. Also, during the course of this meeting, questions may be asked by councillors who are members of the Planning Regulatory Services Committee, of planning officers, applicants for planning permission, objectors, or those speaking on their behalf. In doing so, councillors endeavour to ascertain the information which they feel is necessary to enable them to determine the application. However, members of the public should note that councillors will not reach a conclusion as to whether an application should be approved, refused, or deferred until the debate of the application has concluded. Okay, members, we have 7 items for decision. We're going to move on to Appendix 1, Application LA 08 2022 0698F, and it's an approval. And I am going to ask my Vice Chair, Alderman Kennedy, to assume the Chair unfortunately wasn't able to make the site visit. Okay, Corey, you there?
Yeah, Chair, I'm here. You hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Can you turn on your video?
Happy now.
All good, all good. It's over to you now.
Thank you, Chair. I think Trudy's dealing with this one. So does Trudy want to come in there just at the start?
Thank you, Chair. There's a couple of members with their hands up. Want to take those first, please?
I'll do. Councillor Duffy.
Yes, Chair, I had declared an interest in this as I was involved in complaints against the site on previous occasions.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Just want to say that I wasn't at the previous meeting, council meeting, when this was discussed, and then subsequently didn't get to the site visit, so I'm probably unable to take part in this one.
That's fine, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Ian Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Just similar, I was unable to make the site meeting, so I'll not be taking part in this application. Thank you.
No problem, Councillor Wilson. If you take a few apologies and a few there, we're down to a limited time, I think. I'll hand back to Trudy.
Thank you, Chair. At the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee meeting held on the 4th of October, it was agreed that the planning application LA 08 2020 0698F be deferred pending a site visit by members and to await the response to the Council's letter to the Department of Health regarding telecommunication masts. The response by the Department of Health was attached to the paper circulated today and has been discussed at the earlier part of this meeting. But this letter sets out that the Department of Health have a memorandum of understanding with the UK Health Security Agency. This agency has produced guidance on the health aspects of exposure to electromagnetic fields or radio waves transmitted by mobile communication network base stations. The most recent of these was produced in August 21. The guidance states that health effects are unlikely to occur if exposures are below international guidance levels. Where concerns are raised about health effects of exposure to electromagnetic fields, it is the view of the Department of Health that if the proposed development meets the guidelines of the ICNIRP in all respects, it should not be necessary for the Planning Authority to consider this aspect further. Therefore, having regard to PPS 10 and the comments received from the Department of Health, if an application is accompanied by a statement declaring that when operational the development will meet the ICNIRP guidelines for public exposure to electromagnetic fields, then the Council should not consider this aspect any further. Members are advised that this application was accompanied by such a declaration, so therefore the content of this letter does not alter the previous consideration of the application by officers. Now moving on to the site visit. That took place on Thursday, the 19th of October, and the following members were in attendance: Alderman Kennedy, Alderman Wilson, Councillor Donnelly, Councillor Hockey, Councillor Lavery, Councillor Mulholland and Councillor O'Dowd. Members' queries were answered and set out in the report circulated in advance of the meeting, and members viewed the site from various vantage points. I'd take you back through the slides now. I have included an extra one just at the end in terms of comparison, in terms of height with the existing wind turbine on the site. So if we skip through the first few, we have the site location plan, and then the next one, please, Paula. That's our aerial photograph within the wider area. Next slide, please. And that's a bit of a close-up. Next slide, please. So this was taken from the grounds of Rapid International. And the next slide, please. And again, this is inside the grounds of Rapid International, and we're looking back towards Whitesides Hill. Next slide, please. So this is again within the grounds of Rapid International, broadly where the mast is to be located. Next slide, please. This is taken slightly further back, looking back in the context of the site. Next slide, please. This one's taken slightly further forward and looking back up towards the houses at Churchview. Next slide, please. This was taken from between numbers 4 and 5 Churchview. This is broadly in the area opposite where the wee lay-by is that members stood at the beginning of the site visit. Next slide, please. This is taken from the Tandragee Road, looking back towards where the mast would be located. Next slide, please. And this is from Whitesides Hill, looking back down towards the site. Next slide, please. These are the location of the objectors, and the next slide should also be the objectors, with the yellow indicating those that were petitions. And the next slide then. That's our proposed elevation. And the next one, please. Our equipment cabinets and our meter cabinet. And the next one is our layout. Should be 2 more. Boom. So this is a street view image that I added. This is where we stood for most of our site visit. And this is broadly similar to the view that Mr. McDonald showed in his presentation last month. And then the next slide, please. This shows you the existing wind turbine, and in terms of the height, so the blue mark is roughly where the height of the mast would be in relation to the wind turbine. I know it was quite difficult on site to gauge what height it would be in relation to that, and I thought that might be useful for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trudy. Any members, any questions? There's no hands up that I see, so anyone want to get into debate about the discussion about the mast? No one for discussion. Then we'll head to decision making. Oh, sorry, Councillor Lavery has a hand up.
Thanks, Chair. I was trying to find where the hand button was. It's been a while since we had these all in Zoom meetings. Yeah, thank you for Trudy as well for that presentation, and for the queries and the site visit. I thought it was very informative. It was great to see it as well, and see that from the roads where the complaints were, that there's a sort of a gradient down as well. And given the context that it was kind of an industrial site there, for me it seemed that it would be an appropriate location to site the mast, and obviously the health issues were dealt with there. The International Commission for non-ionizing radiation protection, so long as they put that statement in, which they've done, it seems that takes care of those health concerns. So for me, it seemed that overall it was an appropriate location for such a mast, and be inclined to go with the recommendation for approval. I'm open to hear what other members think, but for me it seemed to be a suitable application given all the various criteria that has to meet.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. Are you making that a proposal that we accept the recommendation?
I thought we were just in a debate stage here. Don't want to.
That's okay. That's okay, Councillor Lavery. Councillor Wilson. Or Alderman Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. And like Councillor Lavery, I was struggling there. I'm on the laptop and I just couldn't find where where the raise hand icon was, but I've found it now. Yeah, similar view to Councillor Lavery. I thought the site visit was useful, and I know in the last meeting I had requested that we, sort of hurry the department on that response. So now that we've read it, I think it does bring a bit of clarity and a bit of comfort to me anyway in terms of the regulations and that understanding in terms of the mass and public concerns on it. So, and also seeing it out on site with the mast itself, and the sort of that industrialized zone, and where it's going to be positioned quite close to the turbine, and that I think it does sort of more lend itself in terms of that locality. I know of other masts, in church towers and that type of thing, which they're well concealed, but I suppose in this location and the fact that there's so little signal for residents, generally in that wider zone, I suppose concealing it more would be more difficult. But I think in terms of the industrial zone and the fact that it is an industrial looking bit of kit, I can understand planners' views in terms of, coming to that conclusion, and that's setting aside, concerns around, the technology itself. But no, happy to hear other people's views as well.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. There's no further hands up. We're in a limited time, but there was two of the attendees, I think, put in apologies. It was at the site visit. So the site visit was very useful. That's what I thought myself when you seen it within the cluster of the buildings, and it's really only a third of the top of the tip blade. So if there's no further hands up, we'll have to head to decision making. Is everyone happy enough? If I can have someone to propose to accept the recommendation. Councillor Albright.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd be content to propose we accept the recommendation, based on, the arguments there from officers. I think, this is a better site for these kind of 5G masts in those more industrial locations, and in future, may have more difficult decisions to make regarding siting, especially as has been said, these 5G masts, there's going to be more of them in order to, with the different wavelengths. So maybe have some more difficult decisions in future, but for this one, it seemed to have merit in terms of location, and those concerns have been led, and certainly in my view. So, content to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. Alderman Wilson.
Yeah, happy to second and just reiterate really what Councillor Lavery has said on that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. So you heard it proposed and seconded. Everyone happy with the decision? There's nobody waving, so thanks very much. We'll hand back to Alderman Barr. Hope he gets all the rest of them. I dealt this quick.
That's on to Appendix 2. So have you finished, Corey? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, members. Moving on to Appendix 2, application number LS08-2021, CR463F, and it's an approval for Guildfresh. I'm going to bring in Roisin Hamill, Principal Planning Officer, to present the report and PowerPoint presentation. Members should also be aware an addendum report has been circulated. So over to you, Roisin. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members will recall this application for a house in multiple occupancy at Ballytyrone Road, Loughgall, was originally presented to the September meeting of the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee with a recommendation to refuse. At that meeting, members resolved to overturn the recommendation and approve the application. Members requested that draft conditions be presented for their consideration. The purpose of this report is to seek members' approval for the proposed conditions, which are set out in detail in the report. But I would just like to take this opportunity to add the wording of the end of condition number 3 and to add the following to it. If within 5 years the hedge dies, is removed or becomes damaged, it shall be replaced in the next planning season with hedging of a similar size and species, unless the council gives written consent to any variation. Officers recommend that members agree the conditions as amended, and I'm happy to take any questions. And because this is just for conditions, there's no PowerPoint for this one. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, Roisin. Okay. We don't have any speakers on this, okay, members. So over to yourselves, any queries or questions? No problem. Okay. Does anybody want to make comment? We're at the debate stage. Yeah, Alderman Kennedy, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just regarding that, the last time it was brought before for refusal, I thought it was quite backward location. It was sited right in the middle nearly of the yard. You can see all the potato boxes are in behind it. So I'm happy enough with this recommendation. I think it's a good decision, and I think there should be no issues with any amendment to there regarding the hedge rent. I think the company should be happy enough to follow through with that, I would think.
No problem. Thank you very much, Alderman. Yeah. Any other comments? No. Okay. I'm going to move on to go for a decision, members. Can I get a proposer and seconder? Councillor Duffy, go ahead.
I'd propose, Chair, the officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you. And Alderman Kennedy, Vice Chair?
Yeah, I would be happy enough to second that, Chair.
Thank you very much, members. Okay, we have a proposal by Councillor Duffy and second by Alderman Kennedy. We all agreed? Yeah, I'll take silence as a yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much, members. Okay, move on to Appendix 6. Okay, application number LS 08 2022 03350. That's approval. I'm going to bring in Liam McCrum, Senior Planning Officer, to present report on PowerPoint presentation. Over to you, Liam. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks outline planning permission for replacement dwelling and detached garage. It lands 50 metres southwest of Lisnacroppin Road or Fryland. The application is before members because we have 4 or more objections have been received. In terms of our principle of development, members are advised that the SPPS and policy CTY1 of PPS 21 identifies a range of type of development that are acceptable in the countryside. One of these is a replacement dwelling in accordance with CTY3. The SPPS and CTY3 requires that a building to be replaced exhibits the essential characteristics of a dwelling and as a minimum has all structural walls substantially intact. It also states that for the purposes of policy, all reference to dwellings will include buildings previously used as dwellings. In this case, the structure to be replaced has a slate roof, a small porch in the gable end. The walls are constructed in single block skin. Having carried out internal inspections, officers are satisfied that the walls are rendered smooth and painted internally in places. The external walls are rendered with rough cast dash. The window and door openings have been built up using blockwork with some sills still visible. Metal window frames with shades and vises have been removed and are stored inside the building. The location of a former internal wall is easily traced as a joint between the former wall and the external walls and concrete floor is clearly visible. Having inspected the building, officers would not disagree that these traces of a dividing wall exist. There also appears to be a hearthstone in the concrete floor where the agent advises a former fireplace existed. There is a timber door frame within the porch in the main body of the building, which is a partially glazed screen above the door opening. The ceiling in the porch is shaded with timber and is completely intact. Given these features described above, officers are satisfied that the building was at one time used as a dwelling house. Officers accept that the building was once a dwelling house, although not currently inhabited. Policy CTY3 requires that all walls are also substantially intact. In this case, the structure has all walls intact. The roof is in place as set out above.
Given that the subject proposal is an outline application, no details have been provided regarding the site and design and external appearance of the proposed replacement dwelling. These matters are reserved for full consideration at reserved matter stage. Members are advised that officers seek to impose a condition of a ridge height restriction of 5.5 metres above finished floor level to ensure that the dwelling will integrate and have no visual impact than the dwelling it seeks to replace. In terms of impact and rural character, officers are satisfied that post-development complies with the requirements of CTY 14. In terms of access and parking, officers in consultation with DFI Roads are satisfied the proposal meets with PPS 3. In terms of impact on residential amenity, the nearest dwelling to the application site is number 62 Lisnacroppin Road and is located approximately 50 metres northwest. Officers have no concern in relation to the impact on residential amenity given this separation distance. Given that the proposal involves a replacement and demolition of a dilapidated building, there is the potential for harming protected species. Officers in consultation with NIA are satisfied that the proposed development complies with all relevant policies of the SPPS and PPS2. Consideration of the third-party representations are set out in detail in the body of the report, and approval is recommended subject to the suggested conditions. If I just take you through the PowerPoint. Next slide, please. So you can see the location of the site within the general area. Next slide, please. An aerial photograph of the site and its surrounds. You can see the small building with the arrow. Next slide, please. This is our site location plan with the building to be replaced coloured green. Next slide, please. This is the concept plan submitted by the applicant's agent and is for information purposes only. This is the front elevation of the building. Next slide, please. Another section of the front elevation. Side elevation. Another side elevation. And the rear elevation of a blocked up doorway. And a side elevation with a blocked up window. And now you can see the front elevation with a blocked up window, and you can see the remnants of a sill. This is the internal doorway with the fan light above it still intact, and you can see the sort of render and paintwork in the internals. And again, give you a variance of the difference between the plaster and internal blockwork. This is a view of our wooden ceiling. So this is the view of the wall. And you can see the outline of the potential fireplace on the floor. And this is a view of what the agent is saying is a chimney open and the roof that aligns the position of where the fireplace would have been on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liam. And members, we have Councillor Joy Ferguson to make representation objection. And we have Ms. Jill Plunkett to make representation in objection as well. Councillor Ferguson, you have 5 minutes to present. Whenever you start, the time on the clock will start. Okay, so just over to yourself then.
Thank you, Alderman Barr. The proposed application is centred around CTY 3, the suitability of an existing building for a replacement dwelling. The building for replacement is approximately 85 years old or more and being used as an agricultural storage or garage for all of this time. I would like to make 3 key points for consideration. Firstly, replacement dwellings must not have a visual impact significantly greater than the existing building. Members have seen pictures of the existing building, but the scale or size is difficult to understand. This building is small. It is 6.6 metres by 4. The annex is 2.2 by 2.1 metre, a total building area of approximately 34 metres squared. It's about 7 metres from the road. The home and garage that are proposed in the outline plans have a significantly larger footprint and the size differential will have a disproportionate visual impact, particularly given that the height of the current building is only 4 metres and the suggested restricted height of 5.5 metres above finished floor level is much greater. At this outline stage, it is clear that the size differential will create a significant impact on the sloping site and this elevated section of the Lisnacroppin Road. Secondly, a dwelling must include buildings. A dwelling will include buildings that previously used as dwellings. With regards to the statement relating to a potential previous dweller, Sis McCrum, moving into the building in the mid-1930s and living there for 10 years, as quoted by the applicant and in the report, the register of births, deaths and marriages show that Sis McCrum married Samuel Patterson in 1937 when she moved to the Ely townland in Glasgow Mills, therefore could not have lived in the proposed building for 10 years from the mid-1930s. Thirdly, the removal of hedgerow. The current outline plan allows an access lane approximately 6 to 7 metres wide, but the proposed site between the proposed site and the property next door. This distance will not likely accommodate a field entrance and splay in accordance with the road service requirements. The BAT surveys, the biodiversity checklist and the Natural Environment Division report states that there will be no removal of hedgerow vegetation. Hedgerow would be removed to create the proposed new field entrance. To accommodate the required 45-degree splays, we estimate between 10 and 15 metres of established hedgerow could be removed. The nature surveys as they stand do not include the removal of the hedgerow by neglecting to consider the impact of the required field entrance. Given the visual impact, that there are no primary witnesses to inhabitation, given the age, the size, the scale of the existing buildings, I would ask that committee members consider a site visit to fully understand the current site of the building under consideration and the impact of the surrounding landscape. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ferguson. I'm just waiting on the case resetting the clock for Ms. Plunkett. Just reset the clock there, please. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Plunkett, whenever you start, the clock will start. Okay, so it's over to yourself.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the committee for giving me this opportunity to voice our concerns. We appreciate the conditions that the planners have put on the development suggestion to mitigate its impact on the landscape character, but we feel that there have been significant oversights that we need to highlight. There'll be some repetition with what Joy Ferguson has just outlined. First of all, we'd like to point to the inaccuracies in Mr. Quinn's account, the developer's account, so not an objective account, that the building was used as a dwelling. As Joy pointed out, we know that Ms. McCrum married on the 27th of May 1937, and therefore she can't have been living for 10 years in the building from the mid-1930s until her marriage. We've been unable to locate anybody born in the late 1920s who would have been alive at the time who could verify whether the site was occupied or not. It's just too long ago. We also note the cautious language used by the planners in evaluating the internal features of the building, and we would say that those features in themselves are not evidence that the building was ever actually lived in. Secondly, we refute the environmental assessments of the development's impact. The proposed development is in fact contingent upon the creation of a new field entrance next to our property. And the environmental impact of that hasn't been taken into consideration. We note that the BAT surveys, the biodiversity checklist and the Natural Environment Division reports state that there will be no removal of hedgerow, but we've estimated that to allow for the field entrance to be set back from the road with the 45-degree splays, they would need to remove about 15 metres of hedgerow. We also think that the current outline plan doesn't allow enough space for that entrance to be accommodated without it impinging on our own property. Thirdly, with respect to road safety, we refute road services estimation of average traffic speeds of 25 to 35 miles an hour, as speeds 45 miles an hour are easily managed on that straight stretch of road, and many vehicles in fact exceed this. Given that there's a mature sycamore tree that hinders visibility to the east of the current entrance, we feel that access and visibility have not been adequately assessed and that the proposed entrances are both in violation of PPS 3 AMP 2. Had the assessment been based on a site visit rather than a Google Street View, a different outcome and recommendation may have resulted, because when physically on site, one would have serious concerns about the safety of turning right onto Lisnacroppen Road when exiting the site. Lastly, we find it very difficult to comprehend how planners could consider that the proposed new construction would not have a greater impact than the current one. The current building is wholly inconspicuous, while the proposed dwelling, even at this outline stage, is much bigger and will have a much greater impact. It will affect the openness to the west and the associated vistas that currently characterise the Bronte Homeland Drive on the Lisnacroppen Road. We think that agreeing to planning will change this forever. So we ask, like Joy,
Yes, thank you very much. Just bear with me a second. Yeah, members, there's a presentation. Can someone confirm to me who's doing the presentation? PowerPoint? Yeah, no, okay. So members, we have Mr. Brendan Quinn of Quinn Design to make representation as the agent in support of the application. Mr. Quinn, you're very much welcome, same as the rest of them. You have 3 minutes to present your report. There's the presentation there. You have 3 minutes to present your report, and the time will start whenever you start talking. Okay, so over to you, sir.
Okay, folks, the applicant's wife's family are from the Lisnacroppen Road area. The applicant purchased the dwelling in the company lands to the rear in 2005 to allow himself and his wife the option to move back to the area. The objectors have claimed the dwelling is in fact a garage or an outdoor shed, and that it was never a dwelling. The old dwelling is kept locked and it has remained continually locked since 2005. The windows have been closed up and one can't see inside. So if we look at the two slides on the screen, the objectors will perhaps not be aware of the features inside the building which confirm it was used as a dwelling, and Liam has elaborated on these, but I will have a wee go at them. Picture 1, the decorative timber door frame between the main body of the dwelling and the porch of scullery with the glazed screen above it and glass intact. The internal walls are rendered smooth in 2 colours, and you can see from one of Liam's photographs, you can actually see where the ceiling joists were. The tongue and groove ceiling in the scullery, which is the photograph to the right. Now, go to the next slide, please. First photograph shows the trimming around the former chimney opening, and the second photograph is the former internal layout that has the outline of a hearth and the internal wall still on the floor. In October last year, the Planning Department asked me to provide information relating to the use of the building as a dwelling. So I spoke to several of the farmers in the area who I know from using the local livestock mart about the history. I asked about the history of the old dwelling. And it transpired one of the people I spoke to was a cousin of the former occupant of the old dwelling, and he advised me to speak to Miss Jean Truesdale in Warringstown, as Jean's mother, Sis McCrum, was the last occupant of the old dwelling. And I spoke to Jean on the 25th of October last year by telephone, and she gave me the following information. The old building is located on land which was formerly owned by her uncle and aunt, Willie and May McCrum, who owned and occupied number 60 Lisnacroppen Road in the mid-1980s, and that's just in behind the old dwelling. Sis McCrum, as Jean's mother, lived initially with her brother at 54 Lisnacroppen Road, and her brother married and Sis moved out of the family home. Jean wasn't sure if the dwelling existed long before her mother moved in, or if the dwelling was built by her uncle Willie McCrum specifically for her mother, but in any case, I'm advised Sis McCrum moved into the dwelling in the mid-1930s. Sis McCrum lived in the dwelling, and then she moved out after she married James Patterson from the Uli area close to Glasgow Mill. When Sis vacated the dwelling, Willie and May McCrum removed the internal wall and chimney and formed a large door opening on the front elevation. They used the dwelling as a garage. Perhaps this explains why the objectors have claimed that the old dwelling is a garage. The old dwelling was last occupied approximately 78 to 80 years ago. The applicant, having undertaken his own research, informs me that of the objectors who have lived locally all their lives, none are of an age that would allow them to remember the old dwelling being occupied. As such, it may appear that the objectors have merely advised the planning department of the use of the dwelling in their own lifetime. But to finish, the dwelling exhibits the essential characteristics of a dwelling and as such complies with CTY3. The planning department are clearly content to approve the application, and I'd be delighted that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Quinn. That's your time up. Yeah, members, we also have Mr. Leslie Crichton, who's the applicant. He's in attendance and he has speaking rights for clarification purposes only. Okay, members, you've heard the report and you've heard objectives and the applicant. Can we move it over to yourselves for questions? Okay, Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. It's a question towards Ms. Plunkett. How long has she lived in the area? And when did she acquire the house when she moved there, or has she always lived there?
We moved in May 2019. We had previously lived on Whitegate Road, which is only a few miles away. We were particularly attracted by the very openness, the landscape openness that I've mentioned that is characteristic of the area. It's an absolutely spectacular location along the Bronte Drive, and it was for that reason that we moved in. We've put everything into developing the area. We're really interested in nature. We've developed the garden. It was essentially a green lawn when it was itself built in round about 20 years ago. To replace an existing cottage. The planning application at the time had stipulated that the area would be planted with native hedge. When we arrived, there was a string of cypresses, Castlewellan golds, and a cordyline, and that was the totality of the vegetation on the site. All our neighbours said, you'll never be able to get anything to grow there, but we've absolutely changed the site. We planted a native hedge, we've planted the garden. We're trying to do our best for the area, sympathetic with the nature of the site. And we think that this is going to severely be detrimental to the nature of the locality.
Thank you very much. Does that answer your question, Alderman Kennedy?
Thank you, Chair. Just a wee clarification there. The objectors are then removed all the trees in the Castlewellan golds around their own site when they moved there?
No, we've left everything. We haven't removed anything that was there. We've supplemented vegetation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Alderman Kennedy. You wouldn't mind putting your hand down. Yeah, members, anybody else for questions? No, okay. We'll move over to debate. Okay, it's over to yourselves. Any comments to make? Alderman Wilson, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. And I suppose we've been here many times before. I've had my views on some occasions where I haven't thought the building in question was that great in terms of the exhibition of characteristics of a dwelling, but I think in this case it's fairly obvious. You know, when you look inside and we see the bricked up windows on that and protruding windowsills and the fact that there is a wee bit of history there, I think this is fairly straightforward in my view, and I've had my differences on occasions in this regard. So on that basis, you know, I can hold tight until the decision phase, but I think in my mind, listening to what I've heard and also reading the information and seeing the PowerPoint, I'd be fairly content looking at the internals of the building, that it, you know, it is characteristic of a dwelling. So thanks.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. Alderman Kennedy again.
Thank you, Chair. Just coming back in where Alderman Wilson was going there, I think looking at the slides and that myself, I don't think there's any issues. Like money wasn't that plentiful back in the 30s, so I don't think anybody would have went to the bother putting in wooden seals and doing up a building if it wasn't going to be occupied. So looking at the slides now, I think I'm quite content that it had been occupied at some time.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alderman Wilson. Sorry, thank you very much, Alderman Kennedy. Any members, any other comments? No other comments on pushes for decision? No other comments? Okay, we're going to be for decision. Can I get a proposer of sorts? Alderman Wilson?
Happy to propose we accept the recommendation of the officers. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Alderman Wilson. And Councillor Armstrong?
Yep, happy to second, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, are we all agreed? Yeah, I see a few nods. Okay, thank you very much. There's no dissenting voices. Thank you very much. Members, it's agreed. Okay, we'll move on to Appendix 3, application number LA 08 2020 00520, and it's a refusal for Mr. McNeil. And we're going to bring in Trudy Chapman, Senior Plan Officer, to present the report and PowerPoint presentation. Over to you, Trudy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The application seeks outline plan and permission for a dwelling on a farm and is before you this evening. It has been called in by Councillor O'Hanlon. Members, if I could firstly draw your attention to an omission in the report circulated. Members are advised that because of the size of the site, the proposed development falls within Category 10B of Schedule 2 of the Plan and Environmental Impact Assessment Regulations, Northern Ireland 2017. An EIA determination was therefore carried out in accordance with these regulations and was determined that an environmental statement was not required. The farm holding itself has been established for more than 6 years and is currently active. No other development opportunities have been sold off from the farm. Therefore, the proposal meets criteria A and B of CTY 10. However, criteria C requires that a dwelling is visually linked or sited to cluster with an established group of buildings on the farm. The applicant has identified the farm dwelling at number 34 Kilmore Road and the adjacent farm building as the established group of buildings on the farm. There is a small portion of the site at the northernmost point, approximately 60 metres south of number 31, which would not cluster but would visually link with the farm buildings. This is, however, immediately to the rear of number 21 and abuts the common boundary with numbers 25 and Mason Saws, which is number 27. Officers are of the opinion that this siting would be detrimental to the amenities of numbers 21 and 25, especially given the topography of the land, and would have the potential to overlook the existing dwellings, leading to a loss of privacy. Officers are of the opinion that this is contrary to the SPPS, which states that the planning system has a role to play in minimising potential adverse impacts on sensitive receptors by means of its influence on location, layout and design of new development. The SPPS states the planning authorities should be guided by the principle that sustainable development should be permitted, having regard to the local development plan and all other material considerations, unless the proposed development will cause demonstrable harm to interests of acknowledged importance. In this case, officers are of the opinion that the proposal has the potential to cause demonstrable harm to the interests of acknowledged importance, namely the residential amenity of numbers 21 and 25. The applicant has submitted a preferred location within this application site, which extends along the road frontage of number 21. Officers are of the opinion that given the topography of the land, which rises up from the road, that this location neither clusters with or visually links with the established group of buildings on the farm, failing criteria C of CTY 10 and CTY 13. It would also read as ribbon development when reading with the existing dwellings of 21 and 25 Kilmore Road, thereby failing CTY 8, and by virtue of this also failing CTY 14. CTY 10 does allow for exceptionally consideration can be given to an alternative site elsewhere on the farm, provided there are no other sites available at another group of buildings on the farm or out farm, and where there are either demonstrable health and safety reasons or verifiable plans to expand the farm business at the existing building group. However, in such circumstances, the proposed site must also meet the requirements of CTY 13, 14 and 16. The applicant has advised that there are plans to expand the farm. These, however, are not verifiable. They have also supported their submission with extracts from the DERA document, Pesticides Code of Practice for Using Plant Protection Products, and advised that their preferred location within the overall application site meets the requirements of this document, as it reduces the potential for a new dwelling to be impacted by spray drift, and a spray drift analysis was also provided. Officers are of the opinion that these are not demonstrable health and safety reasons and are of the opinion that the farm holding provides for alternative sites which may meet may meet all the tests of policy CTY 10 and not impact on residential amenity, subject to other planning and environmental considerations, in which case the exceptions test of the policy is not invoked. Members are advised that all consultation responses were favourable and that no objections were received. Officers are of the opinion, however, that the proposal fails to meet the policy requirements of the SPPS and PPS 21 and recommend that permission be refused for the reasons outlined in the report. And I'll just take you through the slides. Next slide, please. This is the location of the site within the area. General area, there's a dot there just above Rich Hill, which is where our application site is. Thank you, Paul. Next slide, please. Site location plan. You'll see on this, we've got the site location is outlined in red, but the adjoining lands outlined in blue is the farm holding. Next slide, please. This is an aerial photograph of the site within the wider area. And the next slide, please. So this is an aerial photograph of the application site closer up. You'll see I've put a map just to the side just so you can see where we're talking about there. Next slide, please. So this is the farm map that shows the entirety of the farm holding. Next slide, please. These are the applicant site analysis and adjacent site analysis that were submitted with the application. And from our perspective, indicate the rise in land to the rear of the one part of the site that may actually visually link with the farm buildings. They also show the farm buildings to the top of those diagrams. Next slide, please. And this was the applicant's spray drift analysis. Next slide, please. So this is showing the existing orchard that forms the application site. Next slide, please. This is taken from further down the Kilmore Road looking north, and our site is behind that large band of mature trees. Next slide, please. So this is taken from just at the bottom of the curtilage of number 21 looking southeast, and that's our road frontage of the application site. Entrance is currently via that field gate to the centre of the site. Next slide, please. So this is number 21. You'll see just behind the house, you'll see the trees that form the boundary of the site, and then the land rises up behind number 21. Next slide, please. And this is number 25. Again, you can see to the side of number 25, the rise in land to the rear. Next slide, please. So this is taken slightly further up, looking back down. And you've got number 25 with number 27 behind, which is Mason Saws. And again, rise in land to the rear. Next slide, please. So this is taken further along again. This is to show the existing farm building and number 31. So the top photograph takes it from the road, and the bottom one is zoomed in, so you can just about see the tops of them from that vantage point. Next slide, please. And again, this is taken from the entrance, to number 31. This is all within the farm holding, and as you can see from that vantage point, a dwelling situated in this area would definitely visually link and potentially cluster with those buildings. Next slide, please. And this is taken slightly further along, again showing land to the other side of the entrance, again within the land ownership of the farm. And again, you can visually link with those two buildings on the farm. And I think that's our last one, Paula. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Trudy. And members, we have Mr. Mark McNeice of Armagh Design Limited to make representation as the agent in support of the application. Mr. McNeice, whenever you start, the timer will start. You have 3 minutes, sir. You're very much welcome. So over to yourself then, if you want to unmute yourself. Yep, that's you.
Thank you, Chair. The fundamental reason for refusal is that Council and Planning don't believe the supplementary health and safety information to be compelling. Our proposition is that Council Planning are not the competent authority here to interpret this. The competent authorities are the applicant, who's a fifth generation devoted apple grower and available for members' questions, the Public Health Agency, who didn't respond, Environmental Health, whose senior officer responded via email, and Trudy has had sight of this, stating that, and I quote, "We would be supportive of the alternative site," and then formally referred council planning to others, including the Health and Safety Executive. Our Health and Safety Executive has a lot to say about spray drift, and one guidance document called Reducing Spray Drift sums this up quite well, and I quote, "Everyone who uses plant protection products has a legal responsibility to ensure that all reasonable precautions are taken to protect the health of human beings." This is exactly what the applicant is trying to do by ensuring the site is located upwind towards the source of the wind as far south and southwest as physically possible. It's well documented that the prevailing winds during the spraying season emanate from the south and the southwest. The second reason for refusal is linked to the first and of no moment. The third reason for refusal states that we will create a ribbon of development along the Kilmore Road. However, this totally ignores the fact that the orchard is protected from the prevailing winds in this location by mature trees which provide a substantial visual break, totally separating number 21 from number 25 Kilmore Road. The existing development does not appear as a single entity. Building on tradition states, and I quote, "Another type of visual break can be an existing stand of mature trees occurring between properties that appear to be a ribbon on plan." Should this committee be minded to approve, the preferred site will read with number 21 Kilmore Road only. Any concerns that the visual break could be chopped down and infilled are totally unfounded, as the gap is 18 metres, with an average plot frontage of 60 metres, and in this scenario, it would and should not even be considered that there's a gap to fill. The fourth reason for refusal is linked to the third and is of no moment now either. The fifth reason for refusal is a peculiar one, and if this committee could get sight of the spray drift analysis plan, drawing number 4, and identify the preferred site, Hatch Green, they would be at odds to see how overlooking or loss of privacy would concur or could occur. To conclude, the applicant has legal obligation to ensure compliance under the pesticide legislation, and an upwind site towards the source of the wind is integral to legal compliance. We would ask members to support the applicant's continued proficient orchard management. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. McNeice. And members, we have Mr. Gerard McNeil, the applicant, who is with Mr. McNeice. Is that right?
That's right, yes.
Yeah, in the red orange tab. Yeah, you're very much welcome, Mr. McNeil. Yeah, he's here for speaking rights for clarification purposes only. Okay, members, over to yourselves. Any questions? No questions. Okay, we'll move on to debate. Councillor or Alderman Wilson, go ahead. It's over to you.
Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to get the hand up there. Do you have a question? It's just, again, it's just a wee bit more difficult on the iPad here, but the applicant site analysis and adjacent site analysis spreadsheet, I can't read a lot of the information on it. I was just, if Trudy could go back to that one, just to explain just sort of the geography of this, in terms of where the existing farm is, and then in terms of the proposed site, and then any preferred sites, if it could just be outlined on the map, because it just looks, without being able to read, the words are very blurry, so without being able to read what they say, it's very difficult to interpret what it's about.
Paula, if you can go to slide 7, please.
Yeah, so what's that red circle? What's that for?
The red circle indicates what the applicant has shown as what they class as a cordon sanitaire. Now, essentially, that is the 75 metres from the farm building, where they would prefer not to put any development, because they're in their view, this would impact on any dwelling that would go there.
But surely, I know I'm going through the chair, but we've done tons of these dwellings and farms, and I know we've been fairly adamant on occasions in terms of the location of them, clustering and that. I know in other personal circumstances, buildings had to cluster, and planners were fairly adamant about that. So, I mean, that's an established position. Is that the case, Trudy? You know, that that is an overriding, unless there's some other concern that they have to then cluster with them. So that red ring, that is where they don't want, or that's where the applicant doesn't, or argues that they don't want a dwelling to be placed. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, through the chair. In this case, mind you, the farm is an apple orchard, so we don't have the same considerations that we would have if they were farming animals. You know, there's unlikely to be any smells or that. So from a planning perspective, we wouldn't have the same level of concern with that. The preferred location that the applicant has put is, if you look at the applicant site analysis down at the bottom, there's a hatched area with a footprint of a house down there.
Preferred site, is that like the blue hash then? Is that
exactly? Yes. Now the policy says that we're allowed to consider an alternative, provided there's nowhere else on the farm that actually meets the tests. That's when that part is invoked. Now, they're showing on these. You'll see that the squiggly lines, they all say rising ground. So that's the land all rises to the northeast. There's another hatched area.
The significance of that? The rising ground.
Through the chair, and in our opinion, the land to the rear of those dwellings is higher and therefore has the potential to, if you have a higher house than the ones at the lower level, you have that potential for overlooking and loss of amenity. If I'll just explain the hatched area, there's another hatched area in, it's pink, I think. And that's basically there's another amenity buffer is there classing because of mason saws. Now that's an existing business that sells and repairs saws and materials connected with those. Again, it wouldn't necessarily be a noise generating business. And in light of what Mr. McNeice was saying in terms of the senior environmental health comments, while they said they were supportive, they basically said their comments to another, their preferred site would be the same as it was for the rest of the site. They had no objections to anywhere within the red line. So it's not that they were supportive of their preferred location, it's that they didn't raise objections to any of the application site.
And through the chair, if you'll permit me, planners' preferred sites, are they indicated anywhere on that map or on any other map in terms of proximity of the farm buildings?
Through the chair, from our opinion, we feel that there are alternatives closer to the existing farm buildings. You could potentially cite a dwelling close to the access lane that runs up to number 31, as was shown in the last slides. Again, that it would be subject to planning and environmental considerations, but in our opinion, as through the processing of this application, those haven't been ruled out. There's various opportunities in that area that, in our opinion, from the public vantage points, would either cluster or visually link with those buildings.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson and Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. It's just one sort of for Trudy, but I think Alderman Wilson got it covered there a wee bit. It's just, she said there was a detrimental effect on the properties at number 21 and 25, but none of those properties submitted an objection. Is that correct?
Through the chair, no, they didn't, but it is a requirement for officers to consider potential impact on those. We feel that part of the site was the only part that may meet the policy test of CTY 10, but for us to put it there would be detrimental to those two houses. In theory, we could have conditioned a siting condition, but again, to put it on the higher land behind somebody else's house, we felt was detrimental when there were alternatives to that.
Thank you, Trudy.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Trudy, and thank you, Alderman Wilson and Alderman Kennedy. Any other questions, members? I've one there for the agent. Can I your numbers of reasoning? You had a fourth one there. I didn't quite catch the fourth one.
The fourth one is linked to the third reason for refusal, so it's of no moment now. I mean, if we can overcome the third reason, given that if Trudy was to refer back to the pictures, you'll be able to see there is a stand of mature trees both on our property and on number 21 Kilmore Road. So there's a definitive visual break, so we're not ribbing. So I mean, I think we've overcome refusal reason 3, and the consequence of doing that, we've overcome refusal reason number 4.
Okay, many thanks. And suppose from that then, Trudy, can you give a sort of comment on that regarding the trees?
Obviously, we don't agree, or it wouldn't be there as a refusal reason. The trees do give a level of integration when you're looking from the south, but bearing in mind that an access point has to be created, some of the vegetation to the front would go out, and it would still read, if located in their preferred location, you will still have a house there, number 21 and number 25, which by virtue of our policies constitutes ribbon development. It also, by virtue of that, then fails CTY 14, which is very clear in the policy that if you create ribbon, you're also creating build-up. So from our view, yes, the integration from the southern end with those trees, if they were retained, would help, but it doesn't get overcome the issue of ribbon development. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Trudy. Members, any other questions? Okay, going to move this on to debate. Any comments to make? Alderman Wilson, go ahead.
Yeah, I just feel, I suppose the issue is previous, decisions and debates on this over a couple of terms that we've been on planning committee. I know there's new members on it, but we have had a fair few debates on these issues, and the policy is there for that purpose, in terms of ensuring that those types of dwellings are seen to cluster with farms. So and I think if there's any saving grace in this one, is the fact that there are other potential sites. So that gives me a wee bit more comfort in that regard, that there are other options to pursue in terms of, a site more suitable and more in keeping with planning policy, but that's my own opinion.
Many thanks. And Alderman Kennedy, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just come back in where Alderman Wilson again, following on there. That's what I think myself. It's not just one policy. It's falling short there on maybe 5 different policies: CT 1, 8, 10, 15, and 14. It's not a last resort. It's not that they're down to this their last option. Like, I think they have other options there, as Trudy has stated. So, my own personal opinion, I think that they'll have to go back to the drawing board and come back in again.
No problem. I appreciate that. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, we'll move on to a decision. Can I get a proposer of sorts? Alderman Wilson, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, as I've said, I'm happy to accept the recommendation, given what we know about alternatives. So I'm happy to accept the recommendation of council planning officials.
Yeah, many thanks. And Alderman Kennedy, please.
Thank you, Chair. And going along the same lines again, I think I'm happy enough to second the officer's recommendation, given that there's other options available.
No problem. Thank you very much. Okay, members, we have a proposer by Alderman Wilson and second by Alderman Kennedy. Are we all agreed? Yeah, great. Okay, thank you very much, members. Thank you very much, Mr. McNeice and Mr. McNeil. Members, moving on to Appendix 4, application number 8808 2019 0231F, and it's an approval for Wilson's Conservation Products, and Mr. Liam McCrum, Senior Planning Officer, to present the report on PowerPoint presentation. Yeah, over to yourself, Liam, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. This application is for the retention of extensions and new buildings for the storage and processing of timber products, retention of storage containers and ancillary offices, new extraction equipment at Wilson's Conservation Products, Mossfield Road, Dromore. Excuse me. This application seeks permission for the retention of the extensions, and the application is before the committee because we have 4 or more objections. The site is located within the settlement limit of Dromore, as indicated in the area plan, and as an existing area of economic development. As this is a general industrial B3 use, the relevant planning policy for consideration is PPS 4. Policy PED 1 of PPS 4 states that development proposals to extend existing economic development uses on premises within settlement limits will be determined on their individual merits, having regard to policy PED 9 of PPS 4. Officers are of the opinion that the proposed extension of an established economic development use is considered to be acceptable in principle, subject to consideration against policy PED 9 of PPS 4. PED 9 requires that the proposal to be compatible with surrounding land uses. The proposed industrial use is compatible with the existing industrial employment uses within the economic development area and adjacent industrial lands located to the east. There are also residential units immediately adjacent to the site. Policy PED 9 also requires that the proposal does not harm the amenities of nearby residents or create a noise nuisance. A manufacturing business has operated in this site for approximately 20 years. In 2017, planning permission was granted for a residential development, Mossfield Meadows, adjacent to the site on zoned housing land. In granting the planning permission for residential development, officers were satisfied that through the submission of a noise impact assessment and in consultation with the Council Environmental Health Department, that the mitigation measures proposed by the developer would avoid any loss of amenity as a result of noise or air quality. In relation to the application under consideration, the applicant is proposing further mitigation measures in order to safeguard adjacent residential amenity, including the relocation of extraction flues, installation of noise abatement technology within the extract ducting and insulation works to the gearbox and motor of the extraction plant. The environmental health officers have therefore concluded that in relation to the proposed development, noise, odour and fumes will be adequately controlled, and on that basis have no objections subject to the imposition of conditions. In terms of parking, a detailed parking survey has been carried out by the applicant in an attempt to demonstrate that in this case the parking standards guidance does not need to be complied with, as adequate capacity exists within the premises for staff and visitor parking. The survey submitted demonstrated that the site experiences an average parking availability of 8 spaces throughout a typical day, and the existing yard currently has spare capacity to accommodate additional parking demand. Officers in consultation with DFI Roads consider that adequate parking and servicing is provided for the proposal. A number of objections to the proposal have been received, and these will be considered in detail in the report. So on balance, officers are considering that the proposal meets the policy tests of the SPPS and all other relevant policies, and are recommending approval subject to the imposition of the suggested conditions. So we'll take you through the PowerPoint. Next slide, please, Paula. Yeah, so this is our site location within the general area on Mossfield Road. This is our site location plan outlined in red. Site layout plan, areas in pink, are subject to this application. These are the elevation plans of all the buildings on the site. Again, some more of the elevations. These are the floor plans of all the buildings on the site. These are the numbers of site plan relating to floor levels on the plan side. This is our drainage plan. Aerial photograph of the site and its surroundings. This is a view from the Mossfield Road looking into the site. And our view of some of the buildings from within the site. And again, another view within the site. And there's one of our containers. And you can see the storage containers on the ground floor with office on first floor. And this is our pre-finishing container. And there is our extraction system. And this is the interior building with the extraction system. And this is the extension adjacent to the northern boundary shared with the development of Mossfield Meadows. You can see the acoustic fence in there that was part of the housing approval. And again, you can see just another view of that with the acoustic fencing along the northern boundary. And this is just inside our established acclimatization shed. And that's the view of the business from the area of open space in Mossfield Meadows, looking back across the site. And again, just another view. So you can see the proximity of the existing dwellings. And again, just another view looking across the area of open space in the housing scheme, across into the yard. And again, just another view of the acoustic fencing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liam. Yeah, members, we have with us Mr. Michael Clark of O'Callaghan Planning. He's here for speaking rights for clarification purposes only. So over to yourselves. Any questions to ask of our planning officers or Mr. Clark? Okay, Alderman Kennedy, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just regarding there, in one of the notes, it said that the building was erected in 2018 without planning permission. Is that correct, or there's only in the objector thing there said that there was a building erected without planning permission? Is that correct? It said retention of, but in the slides there it showed quite a few wee jutties out the back.
Yeah, Alderman Kennedy, this application seeks retention of the buildings that are in situ on the ground. So there was unauthorised development carried out on the site, and this application seeks to regularise that.
Yeah, what sort of scale was the size of the building?
Essentially, they were all varying scales. There was I suppose there's one of the site plans there shows the extent of what is seeking to be regularised. I think if Paula could get it up, it shows you the area where it was in the pink swash of the buildings that this application seeks to regularise. The other buildings were in situ, so I think it's maybe slide 4 there. Maybe gives you an indication of what we're actually. Yeah, so, it's disappeared on us. Yeah, so essentially, look, the areas in pink are the ones that are subject to this application. So there is a bit of a mismatch in different buildings that have appeared on site over time. But the darker buildings there have been in situ and were subject to a certificate of lawfulness that was granted back in 2018. So all the darker shaded buildings are all approved under a separate application, and realistically all we're dealing with in this one is the building shaded pink.
Thank you, Liam.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alderman Kennedy. Thank you, Liam. Members, any more questions? Yeah. Going to move on to the debate. Any comments to make, members? No. Okay, members, move on to the decision item. Can I get a proposer and a seconder, please? Yeah, Councillor Duffy and then Councillor Wilson. Councillor Duffy, go ahead.
I propose we accept the officer's recommendation.
Yeah, many thanks, Councillor Duffy, and Councillor Ian Wilson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to second that proposal.
Yeah, we have a proposer and proposed by Councillor Duffy, second by Councillor Wilson. You all agreed? We go with the recommendation. All agreed. Thank you very much, members. Thank you, Liam. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Move on to Appendix 5, application number LA08-2022 0728F, and it's an approval Arona Developments. And I'm going to bring in Roisin Hamill, Principal Planning Officer, to present the report and presentation. Over to you, Roisin, please.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks full planning permission for the erection of 3 dwellings and associated site works on lands to the west of 30 and 32 Ballyoran in Portadown. The dwellings would be of terrace design with a ridge height of 8.7 metres above ground level. The application is being presented to committee as it attracts an objection from a statutory consultee. The application site is on unzoned land within the development limits of Craigavon urban area, and officers are of the opinion that the relevant criteria of policy set 1 have been met. Therefore, the proposal to develop the site for residential purposes does not conflict with the area plan and is acceptable in principle. Policy QD1 of PPS 7 requires new residential development to demonstrate that the proposal will create a quality and sustainable environment, and the policy identifies 9 criteria which proposals for residential development is expected to comply with. These have been considered in detail in the report, and as set out, officers are of the opinion that the proposed development is acceptable, such that it complies with the SPPS, Policy QD1 of PPS 7, its addendum, and the supplementary planning guidance as detailed in Creating Places. A total of 6 parking spaces have been provided, and analysis of the parking calculation as detailed in Creating Places would place a requirement for 6 spaces for development of its nature and scale. Additional parking is also available to the front of the site along the roadside, and officers are satisfied sufficient parking is being provided. NI Water have recommended that this application be refused. They have advised that while there is available capacity at the wastewater treatment works, there is a public file sewer within 20 metres of the proposed development boundary which cannot adequately service these proposals. Confirmation has been provided from the agent that an engineering solution for disposal of wastewater can be found. Accordingly, in line with Appeal Reference 2021 A0231, officers consider that the imposition of a negative planning condition is necessary. This would prohibit commencement of any development until a wastewater impact assessment confirms that a sewage connection can be made, or that alternative provision for disposal of sewage is made, and this is submitted to and agreed in writing by the planning authority. On balance, officers consider the proposal meets the policy tests as set out in the SPPS and all other relevant planning policies. And subject to the conditions attached, officers are content to recommend planning permission be granted. And I'll just take you through the slides. And if we just go to the next slide. And the red arrow gives you an idea of the site within the general area there, just beside Dungannon Road off Ballyoran Hill. This is an aerial context of the site. Again, the red arrow will show you where the application site is located. And that's the site location map that has been submitted with the application site outlined in red. So this is our proposed site layout, and you can see the location of the terrace of 3 dwellings sitting back on the site with 6 parking spaces provided to the front. And these are the elevations of our proposed dwellings. And these are the floor plans of the proposed dwellings. And this is a view of the site just there from the Dungannon Road. And again, this is from the site adjacent to our application site, looking across at the site. And just again, a view just directly in front of the site. You can see the site slopes up slightly away from the road. And just another view of the site taken looking at it from further down the Dungannon Road. And that completes the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, Roisin. Appreciate that. Members, there's no other speakers on this. Can I get any questions of our planning officer, please? Yeah, move on to debate. No questions. Any comments? Alderman Kennedy, over to yourself.
Thank you, Chair. I think the situation in there in the corner, they're just really going to tidy up a wee corner there if that patch of land in between the 2 developments are. So I don't think there's any objection with it at all. It'll be a plus, in my view, to that corner.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Alderman. And Councillor Duffy.
Yes, leaning towards it. There's been an empty site there for years, and since the old Henderson house at the corner was knocked down, it's been sort of derelict site, and community's just sort of been waiting on to know when it was going to be built on, you know. That's my opinion, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Okay, members. No other comments to make. Can I get a proposer and a seconder for the report? Councillor Duffy, go ahead.
I propose the officer's recommendation, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Alderman Kennedy.
Yeah, I'm happy enough to second the officer's recommendation. I think it'll be a positive for the area.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alderman Kennedy. Members, you've heard proposal from Councillor Duffy and second by Alderman Kennedy to go with the recommendation. We all agreed? Yeah. Silence is golden. Okay, thank you. Move on to Appendix 7, application number LS08-2022-0917F. And so approval for Mr. Raymond Stephen and Ann Hutchison. And it's over to Trudy, last but not least, Senior Planning Officer, to present the report and presentation.
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to the subdivision of an existing dwelling to form two-storey dwelling units, with building alterations, renovations, first floor extension, associated site works, landscaping and a car parking area. It's before you this evening as it attracts an objection from a statutory consultee. Members are advised that condition number 4 should end with the words "to the council's satisfaction," and that officers would like to add one further condition to those detailed in the circulated report, which reads: the building works required to implement the development hereby approved shall only be carried out between the hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Friday and 7 a.m. to 1:30 on Saturdays, and at no time on Sundays or bank holidays, and this is to protect residential amenity of neighbouring properties. I should advise the agent has been made aware of these and has no objections to the inclusion. The proposal seeks to subdivide an existing dwelling into 2 individual properties, which will share communal amenity areas and parking provision. The proposed amenity area and parking provision both meet the guidelines set out in Creating Places and the Parking Standards document. Officers are of the opinion that the proposal, being located in a predominantly residential area, is compatible with adjacent uses, and that the minor alterations and extension proposed will not adversely impact on the residential amenity of any neighbouring property. Members are advised that all consultation responses, with the exception of that received from NI Water, were favourable and that no third-party objections were received. NI Water recommended that the application be refused, and while there is available capacity at the wastewater treatment works, there is a public foul sewer within 20 metres of the proposed development, which cannot adequately service the proposal as the receiving foul sewerage network has reached capacity. They advise that this establishes significant risks of detrimental effect to the environment and detrimental impact on existing properties, and for this reason they recommend the connections to the public sewage system are curtailed. However, officers noted that in a recent appeal, the PAC were advised that the developer may have to undertake a wastewater impact assessment in order to determine what works would be required to enable development to connect to the wastewater infrastructure. They considered that the imposition of a negative planning condition was reasonable and necessary and would prohibit commencement of any development until the submission of a wastewater impact assessment to confirm that either sewage connection could be made or alternative provision for the disposal of sewage could be achieved. In this case, confirmation has been provided from the agent that he is satisfied an engineering solution for the disposal of safe wastewater can be found. Accordingly, in line with the approach taken by the PAC, officers considered that the imposition of a negative planning condition is necessary and would address the concerns raised by NI Water. As in the PAC case referred to, the condition would prohibit commencement of any development until a wastewater impact assessment confirmed that a sewage connection could be made, or that an alternative provision for disposal of sewage is made, and this would be submitted in writing to the planning authority for us to agree in advance. This would ensure that any proposed concerns in respect of sewage capacity are properly addressed before the development can proceed. On that basis, the proposal meets all other requirements, and members are advised that officers feel that this should be granted subject to those conditions set out in the report. And I'll just take you through the slides, please. So this is our site. We're really in the centre of Tandragee. Next slide, please. This is our site location plan. We're at the junction of the Portadown Road and Armagh Road. There's a wee mini roundabout just to the right there. Next slide, please. That's the area photograph of the site, the wider area. And the next one, please. And that's us up close. You'll see the mini roundabout, and our building in question is the one immediately to the northwest of the roundabout. Next slide, please. So this is taken from the Armagh Road looking north. Our building in question is just to the right of the screen there. Next slide, please. And this is a close-up looking straight at the property in question from the Armagh Road. Next slide, please. And this is us looking from the Portadown Road, looking back again at the same site. Again, the building in question is right in the centre of the screen. Next slide, please. So this is taken from the boundary of number 1 Ballymore Park, looking back eastward towards the site. Next slide, please. And this is taken from the open space to the front of number 1 Ballymore Park, looking again east towards the site. Next slide, please. So this is taken from actually within the site, looking out towards St Mark's Church to the south. St Mark's is a listed building, and HED were consulted and had no objections. Next slide, please. So this is taken again, looking back in towards the site. So when we refer to the extension, that part above the carport there actually would come down and be rebuilt. So that's what the extension relates to. Next slide, please. These are the existing floor plans on the left and the proposed floor plans on the right. As you'll see, there's very little difference. As I say, the main difference is that we're taking down part of that first floor and rebuilding it again. Next slide, please. And these are existing elevations on the left and our proposed elevations on the right. And that should be it, Paul. No, one more. Existing and proposed layout. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trudy. Okay, members, over to yourselves. Any questions? Yeah, Alderman Wilson, go ahead.
Yeah, just if we know, does it involve the re-rendering of the property, Trudy, do you know? Because I know it is a real eyesore looking, there's lots of cracks in the outer walls, and it doesn't help the look of it in any way. I'm just wondering, curious, if it involves re-rendering, or does it go into that type of detail in the plan?
Just bear with me. I'm going to double check. I'm fairly certain it does include tidying up the render, but if you just bear with me, I'm going to double check for you. Yes, the existing sand cement renders to be removed and re-rendered with lime render.
Thank you, Trudy. Is that happy with that answer, Alderman Wilson? Okay, any other comment or any other questions, members? Can we move on to debate? Any comments to make? Okay, Alderman Wilson, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's just great to see, an application to deal with this building, because just in its location and its current condition, I'll drive past it most weeks, and just given its prominence, you're always sort of thinking it would be amazing to see some type of improvement in that structure, and great now to see that there is plans to deal with it, because it is in one of the main gateways in the Tandragate at the top of the town there. So it'll be exciting to see it developed and improved, and people actually, living in it. So to me, it'll be a huge benefit. So I'm happy enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman Wilson. Any other comments, members? No. Okay. Can I get a proposer and a second of the report or alternative? Go ahead, Alderman Wilson.
Yeah, I'm happy to propose we accept the recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, you can do rock, paper, scissors. Here, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor or Alderman Kennedy, go ahead.
Let the Deputy Chair take that one.
No problem. Go ahead, Alderman Kennedy.
Well, I think we're in the same hymn sheet here, so it'll not matter who shouts. But I would be happy enough with the second proposal. It's a bit like the last one. It'll tidy up the corner again, so I'm positive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman. Okay, members, we have proposal by Alderman Wilson, second by Alderman Kennedy. We go with the proposal or the recommendation from the planners. You all agreed? Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, members. And thank you for your time this afternoon. And that's us. Okay, can I ask ICT to please turn off the light feed?